Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Who's Who in the Zoo. This is a podcast about developing empathy for other roles in the construction industry. And today's role that we're going to talk to is the food service design consultant. I'm honoured to have as my guest Nisha Ghantwal, who is with the Mack Group in Sydney. Hello, Nisha. How are you?
Hello, Rob. Thank you for having me. Very happy to be representing the food service design consultants.
Fantastic. Nisha, I could do an introduction for you. It would, I guess, encourage people to listen to you for all of the things that the Mac Group have done. But instead, I want to ask you to give your own introduction. And specifically, I'm interested in what interested you in this role.
Okay. So, my name is Nisha Ghantwal, and I'm the director of the Mack Group. We at the Mack Group are commercial food service consultants, and we specialize in the field of commercial kitchen designing. So I started with the Mack Group about 15 years ago as a junior documenter. So my role was kind of taking the sketches, developing them into design, like fully documented designs for tender. 10 years later, I was the one designing the kitchens. I became the associate, and it was a journey which was very exciting. And 2016, when the founder, Teresa Mack, wanted to retire, she passed on the baton to me. And it's been 5 years since I've been the director of the Mack Group. It has been exciting as well as interesting because of COVID. Last 5 years has been challenging. But yeah, and what really excited me, working in this field was commercial kitchen designing is creative as well as it's very technical at the same time. So kitchens have to be, in Australia, they have to also adhere to a specific regulation. So there are food codes, Australian standards that the kitchens have to comply with. So it's like the multi-level of challenge that really excited me. So we're not just designing, we have to make sure it meets the codes as well. It needs to be very technical. So that was really exciting. As well as kitchen designers, we get involved in projects quite early during the concept stage. So we are an important part of like the core team. So we have architects and clients and decision makers during the initial concept stage, and we get on board to make sure that the kitchen, which is the most services intensive part of the project, and has to work. So that was really exciting to me to be a part of that core team. And also, what was very exciting was that we were working on a range of projects from like a tiny coffee shop to a large catering kitchen for an airline company to, iconic buildings like Sydney Opera House to large corporate offices like Macquarie Bank or Google. So it was really exciting the type of projects we were doing, the variety that we're doing. So that's why it's been 15 years working in the field, and it's still as exciting as the first day.
I guess the old adage that if you don't like the heat, you shouldn't be in the kitchen. I think that's the sort of thing that you're talking about. Kitchens are difficult, aren't they? They've got a lot of hard surfaces, so they're very noisy. A lot of
Yes,
heat,
yes.
moisture. So it must be very difficult to design for the person. Do you think often about designing, for this person, this human sort of body, the all of that?
Absolutely. So I did my graduation in architecture. Then I did my master's in sustainable design. So being sensitive to design and sustainability comes naturally to me. I have been studying it and I've been trained into that. So when I design, or when as Mack Group we design commercial kitchens, that is the focus in addition to just kind of designing kitchen to make fit all the cooking equipment and all of that. So when we're designing, we keep into mind the workflows as well as very important is wellness. So people working in that space, how comfortable they are, they're not kind of crossing each other's path. There is sort of, kind of keeping the kitchen cooler, less noisy. So people working in the space experience the space as something that adds value for them as well. They're going to that space to work every day. They are in that space working, you're spending a lot of time. It is as stressful because that's one space that you have to stand all the time to work. So on top of that, there's standing as well as there's heat coming from cooking equipment and the noise. So all that adds to stress. So we try, as kitchen designers, try to make it as comfortable for the people working in that space as possible. It's not always easy being a part of a design team, and especially because many of the kitchens are in the back of house, they are not visible part of the buildings. And so we sometimes have to fight for spaces. There's always a struggle and a challenge, but with every challenge comes an opportunity. So we try to make the most of that and try to come up with solutions that are in the best interest of the project.
Sounds very exciting. You certainly got a lot of pressure on you to create a space where people perform. Question for you then, Nisha. On a day-to-day basis, I'm not talking about yesterday or last week, but just generally on a day-to-day basis, what are the sort of activities that you're doing? If somebody was listening in and they were thinking, "Wow, this sounds like an exciting job,"
Mm-hmm.
um, what what would you be telling them that you're doing on a regular basis?
So, as the director of the company, my role is mentoring, making sure, supervising, researching. So, on a day to day basis, I start with checking on my emails, like many of us do, prioritizing what's important, which are the main critical areas that we need to work on as a team. What is priority, and then guiding the team to work on that. It could be a tender submission that is coming through, or there is an issue on site and some of us have to be on site. So it's kind of working with the team to make sure that we are attending to the items as per priority. And then we also, in a day, I would be meeting suppliers to understand what's new technology available. I would be kind of going through, changes to the regulations, new updates. For example, the Green Building Council has 4 6-star buildings made sure that there's no fossil fuel. We, as commercial kitchen designers, for us, it means that there's no gas in the building. And that's a very, kind of very serious impact when it comes to operating a kitchen without a gas. So we have to look for technology, which is induction, find information on how do we approach it, how do we talk to chefs about it, understanding what other people in the industry like our peers are doing, um, finding examples of kitchen which are already operating in those lines. So that's kind of the work that I do on a day-to-day basis as a director. But as a commercial kitchen designer, you would be kind of working with the design team to understand the requirement of the project, finding the right equipment, finding the right workflow on that space for the kitchen, and responding to the brief, providing drawings, providing equipment selection, and then kind of providing all that information that we've collected, passing it on to project teams so they can do their work in terms of services documentation, finishes documentation, and then kind of producing tender drawings, with doing site visits. So it's all exciting. Every day is
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah. So I'm expecting then that you're exposed to a lot of new technology, a lot of new ways to cook, possibly to a lot of different chefs, and also maybe different ways of producing food and storing food.
Yeah.
How much of that do you take home? I mean, do your kids and your husband? I mean, are they sort of getting the benefit of all this extra learning that you've got, or is there nothing? You just leave it behind and you just go home and just leave it there. Tell
Um,
me, tell me about what sort of lessons that you've seen from chefs that you might have taken home to practice at home or something like that.
I've tried to do sous vide at home,
Okay,
which is that
okay,
slow cooking. Yeah, I've tried to. I saw a chef doing it, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's a really tender." The final product that came on the plate was, just melted in your mouth. So I tried doing that at home.
wow,
We currently have a gas cooktop at home, which came with the house that we are living in. Um, and as soon as this one is kind of at the end of its life, we are looking at changing it into an induction. I know exactly which one I want. So it is exciting. Also, with food safety, as commercial kitchen consultants, we also focus a lot on food safety. So how long does a food, as soon as you keep the food out of safe temperature, that is, if it is between 4 and 60 degrees, which is an unsafe food temperature, you can keep it for 4 hours or longer. It will not be fit for eating. So all that information kind of affects us when we are at home and we see something lying out of the fridge. It comes instinctively that you put it in the fridge into a safe temperature. I think that is what the main thing that has changed me, is looking at things from the food safety point of view. But in terms of equipment and technology, because we work in a lot of commercial scenario, yes, we would like a combi oven at home, but a $30,000 combi oven at home will be a lot more than what I would, I won't be cooking that much. So might just leave it for the
Yeah.
restaurants. Yes.
Nisha, tell me, what is a good day at the office look like
Um,
for a food design consultant? Not from the Mack Group, but for a food design consultant, what does a good day look like?
yeah, in terms of a good day, what would be exciting is to get an exciting project. Like if we win a good project that we were really wanting to work on. That happened to me when I was, early days with the Mack Group, and Sydney Opera House refurbishment came along, and that was one exciting building that I really wanted to work on. And when the office won the project, it was extremely exciting. The other way would be when you walk into a finished project and the chef comes and say, "Oh, this is amazing." So when we did the Scalabrini Drummoyne, it's an aged care facility, and we did a kitchen for them. And I went to do the defects inspection at the end of the project, and the chefs had already moved in, and he couldn't believe how amazing the kitchen was. He's like, "Oh my god, the cool room spaces, the connection between the spaces, it is just incredible." So yeah, that was just amazing. Yeah, that was one of the really good days. Otherwise, many of our projects do win awards. So as soon as whenever you hear about a project winning appreciation,
Award.
that is fantastic.
Yeah. Something, Nisha, that you've said has really piqued my curiosity. You've said a few times about the workflow and the food flow. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you come up with these ideas? What are the
So
things that run through your mind?
yeah. In terms of designing the kitchen, we follow the flow that a food follows. So you get the delivery of the food, it goes into the storage areas, it goes into preparation, cooking, then it is served. You get dirty dishes back, and then they get washed and they get held. So this is a logical flow in a commercial kitchen. So when we design the commercial kitchens, we try to maintain that flow, and we provide, spaces that each individual working in the kitchen has their own work area. They're not on each other's toe. And that helps in keeping the whole temperature of the kitchen down, with chefs not screaming at each other, people not bumping into each other. So yeah, that's the main. In terms of workflow, that is really important. Also, with open kitchens these days, when you go to a restaurant and you can actually see the kitchen staff working, that time you don't want to see a chef screaming at each other. So then as well, it becomes a lot more important to design a kitchen so the staff actually are enjoying working there. And because it's a presentation kitchen, they are open and everybody can see them. So in that case, the workflow needs to work well. And if the workflow is neat, the kitchen's tidy, everything in it is in its place, nobody is crossing paths, and it's a nice working environment for everybody.
Wow. Nisha, we've had a few conversations, and your passion for sustainability is clearly evident in those conversations. We're in a world that is changing on this path to carbon neutrality. Tell me, what other challenges are out there for your role, or is sustainability the dominant driver of change at the moment in your industry?
Sustainability is a very important, kind of uh, principle, or kind of uh, the thing that we kind of focus on a lot, because Kitchens are very service intensive, and they are consuming a lot of energy. They have power, they have gas, they require water, they require high quantities of water for washing, they need high temperature water to achieve that sanitizing temperature. So sustainable, wherever you're consuming lot, that's where you want to apply sustainability principle to reduce the consumption first, and then to make things as efficient as possible. So that's one of the main focus that we have. In addition to that, with COVID, one of the challenges has been in the last 2 years to design a kitchen, mainly for during COVID and post COVID, so it can adapt. So,
Right.
places like serveries and buffets, during COVID, it is staff served, so people don't serve themselves, but eventually the buffets need to be self served. So the design to need to be a little more adaptable. The other challenge is in many of the kitchens that we work, it requires the DDA compliance or requirement for people on a wheelchair to use it. So we work on school kitchens, we worked on community kitchens. So in those areas, the kitchens are not only used by trained staff, it needs to be used by somebody who is on a wheelchair, or so we work with suppliers who can provide us information on how to achieve what we have set out to achieve, with adjustable bench heights, side opening ovens, and we need to keep ourselves up to date with all the requirements, not only just for a standard commercial kitchen, but also in terms of a DDA compliant kitchen.
Wow, that's amazing. It's hard to imagine in those noisy, tight, humid, loud spaces that there would be a lot of people in wheelchairs in kitchens. But it makes sense that we can't have a space that they couldn't gain employment in.
Yeah. So
So
in commercial kitchens
that's
are,
interesting.
sorry, yeah, commercial kitchens are usually exempted unless you know that there is going to be people there, like community kitchens. So those kitchens can be used by anybody. Also, we do
Oh yeah.
student accommodations. So, for example, we did the Sydney University student accommodation, and they had a large communal kitchen where students had their own fridge lockers, they had dry storage lockers, and they had cooking islands. And all those islands had to be, DDA compliant. The fridge access had to be DDA compliant. So it is not all the kitchens that we need to make it, DDA compliant, but many of them, they do have that requirement. So that is a bit of a challenge, but it's exciting, and it's always nice to be doing something other than just normal design. It's always a story when it is told, in addition to just the project brief, that always excites us.
Yeah. So the role of the food service design consultant, I'm sure you have a lot of interaction with the architect and the
Hmm.
builder, and sometimes I'm sure that interaction has some conflict in it. How often is there conflict? I mean, is it a regular thing? Everybody wants a bit of the kitchen space, or maybe I'm just misapplying my sense of it all. How much of this interaction do you have with the other stakeholders?
We do have a lot of interaction. So, as commercial kitchen designers, we are part of a big team. So, the team is project managers, architects, services engineers. For project manager, it means that we provide all the documentations for approvals to them, and they don't have to worry about certification because we certify the design saying it's compliant with the codes, and that's the certificates that the councils will require. For architects, what it means is that we design the kitchen so they don't have to worry about one part of the building to design in detail. We specify all the equipment as well, and we provide them information on what type of services are required in that space or finishes are required. So everything complies with the food code in addition to Australian standards. For services engineers, we provide information on all the services required by equipment. So all they have to do is take our information and plug in into their drawings. So yeah, so there's a lot of interaction with all the different members of the project team. And when there is an interaction, there are times when we do have conflicts. Like with the architects, we will be fighting for space. With services consultants, sometimes there's not adequate headroom for ductwork, and we need the height in the commercial kitchen. So that's the time when we have that discussion. We will be working with interior designers who do not want to provide sneeze guard because they look ugly, and we agree it looks ugly, but it requires as per codes. So we work with the client and on how do we reach a middle ground? How do we ensure it is compliant and food safe as well as meet the aesthetics? That's the main challenge that we have. But yeah, like we as specialist consultant, working on the project, work part of the project team, there are conflicts, but like I said, there's always an opportunity when there is a challenge. So that's what we work towards.
Okay. Nisha, one of the final questions I've got for you is what request for help, what advice would you seek from people who are working beside you, as in other stakeholders that are working towards, developing the dream? What ways can they help you with this project?
With we like to be involved from the beginning of the project. So what it makes easier for us is if we go and say it's 100 seat restaurant, we need a kitchen that big to cater to that menu. So when if we are involved from the beginning, so to the project manager and architects, I would like to say involve us from the start. So
Yeah.
there is no surprises later on that the kitchen has to grow and encroach on the number of seats, etc. Also, it also helps if we can work with the services consultant and they can tell us you can't have penetrations here, there is a beam here, you can't, the headroom is going to be just 2 meters because of so and so reason. So we know what are the parameters that we are working with. So when we are designing the kitchen, we know exactly where not to put the dishwashing, where not to put the exhaust, and we can provide the comments saying that will the kitchen work in that space or not. For example, when we were doing the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Sussex Street, the kitchen was to go on the mezzanine floor, cantilevered
Right.
on top of the freeway. So
Whoa.
because it's on
Okay.
the highway, you can't have drainage. And there was a lot of complexity around it. So when we were involved during the initial stage and we recommended that this is not a space, we can't have a working kitchen here. It is going to be a nightmare for services to work. So
Mm.
the kitchen was then moved to the basement, and we had a small show kitchen on that floor, on the part where it was not above the freeway. So being involved from the beginning of the project, it was in the interest of the project that nobody's wasting time designing the other areas and then we come and say it doesn't work. So start involve us from the beginning. Give us all the information on what the parameters we are working with. So that will make us, a lot more efficient in providing the design solutions.
Um, there's a number of changes that we've already talked about. So sustainability is an obvious one, and you've mentioned flexibility, and you've mentioned things like the impact of world events such as COVID, etc. Um, in dealing with these things going forward, have there been any changes that you think, I'd like this change to continue? Or are there any changes that have occurred that you say, I really wish I really wish we didn't keep this sort of focus? So for example, I'd imagine the idea of doing more with less in sustainability is a change you'd like to keep. What are we more fastidious with our food than we used to be? What sort of challenges do you see that things that you see as changes that you'd like to keep, and things that you
Mm.
see as changes that you wish we could
Yeah,
change?
sustainability changes are always welcome, but the challenge becomes when
Mm.
we are adapting a sustainability principle from another country or another continent. For example, we were working on a project where we had to, kind of comply with the LEED Platinum, which is a US based requirement.
Oh my,
By that,
yeah.
means the taps have to have a flow of 1.5 liters per minute, not more than that, to meet that compliance. For kitchens, it means um, it's dribble, exactly. So it is not suitable for preparation kitchen, for wash up sinks, and for preparation sinks. As well as if you look at sustainability, it's not just the usage, but where is the product coming from? So 1.5 liters per minute, there is no tap in Australia that can do that. The least the minimum is 1.7 that, Australian manufacturers can provide. So this particular tap was to be imported. So that comes with its own carbon footprint. And then you wouldn't have, replacement parts, and they had other challenges. So, when we're looking at the sustainability principle, I think not just the principle, we have to sometimes use logic. Is it suitable for the application? Is it, available locally? So all those, I think, take priority to if we are adapting a principle from another country or state. That's one. Also, I feel that the Australian standards for construction of commercial food premises, which is AS 4674, is dated 2004. So it is really old, 18 years old. And in the 18 years, imagine the technological development, the different types of facilities, the open kitchens, etc. Also, what you will find is that the standards are a little bit vague. They don't give you exact information. A lot is left to interpretation, and that becomes extremely challenging sometimes, as commercial kitchen designers, when we go for meetings and we are asked, why can't we do this? It doesn't say in the code that you can't do it. So it's sometimes to justify why are we designing the way, and it's our experience, and we have seen a lot of council reject certain drawings or close down food premises for not complying. So I think maybe it's time to update the standards or at least to kind of revise certain things. So that would be good to make it a little bit more clear. These are the two things which I feel, one that, when we are changing, we need to keep in mind, and the other one that we should think about changing a little bit.
Nisha, do you have any words of encouragement or discouragement? I think we're fairly easygoing on the show. Do you have any words of either encouragement or discouragement for somebody who would be considering this role?
Definitely all encouragement. I've been doing it for 15 years, like I said, and it's been really, really exciting to see. The best part about our role is people don't stop eating. If you know, during COVID, everybody was home and everybody was wanting to go out and, go out to the restaurant, go out clubbing, go out partying. People are very adventurous with different type of cuisines they want to try. Um, Master Chef and all these different TV shows as well kind of bring out that chefs who are behind the kitchen, make them a showcase. There's show kitchens are a big thing now. The bars are really exciting. There's all different themes around. So I feel it's a very exciting industry. It keeps changing. It keeps evolving. There's different trends that keep coming. So it's definitely a very exciting industry. So always encouragement. And also for us, it has also given us an opportunity to work for the community. So we not only, we are in business, so yes, of course, we do a lot of commercial projects, but we also work on a lot of community and pro bono work as well. So we recently sort of completed a pro bono project in Bangladesh. So we were approached by a Dubai-based company called Lighthouse Cohort. They do a lot of humanitarian work, and as part of this project, we had to design a food truck for a laborer who, he was a laborer in Dubai, and he's now a businessman in Bangladesh running his own food truck. So there were a lot of, support by an investor. Everybody came together, and it's an inspiring story. And this man, after his food truck was built, his first meals from the food truck went to an orphanage, which was unbelievable. It was just amazing to see a person who was at a receiving end now at a giving end. He was giving back to the community. Currently, we are also working for another pro bono work in Sydney for Dalwood House. It's a domestic violence center and it provides support to families going through rough time. So we're designing 2 kitchens for them, and we've reached out to our suppliers for help as well. And it was just incredible to see companies like Smeg, Moffat, Scope coming forward in support of the project and provide free equipment. I've shared stories of this on my LinkedIn on how this project came about. It's an incredible story if your viewers would like to go and have a read through. But
Yeah.
being in this industry has given us this opportunity to give back, and it's amazing.
Well, Nisha, it's Easter Thursday, and that was a particularly heartwarming way to conclude today's version of Who's Who in the Zoo. I wish you every success and a safe holiday, and thank you very much for being a guest on this show. Bye bye.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you.